Do you ever feel like you're weird? Like you don't fit in and you do not want to fit in because you're wearing a hat always. Okay, hello everyone. It's Anna, also known as Book Anna, and today I have some books for you if you feel weird and like you don't fit in. I have books that I think that if you are seen in public reading them, people are going to tell you, hey, you're a bit of a weirdo. That's an interesting book you have there. What is that book? And when you tell them what that book is, they're going to tell you, huh, yeah, you're weird. So, without further ado, let's go through them. I have 10 books that I'm going to be talking about today. I just think that they are a bit bizarre. They're little bizarre books. First book that I have is the only classic that I have on this list. I didn't put a lot of classics because I am not somebody who reads predominantly classic literature, but I do like it here and there. So this is one of my favorite books, and it's probably actually the first classic that I read by myself without anybody telling me that I have to. And I really enjoyed it. It's one of my favorite books, and I like the story in the format of a movie and in format of the book. And that would, of course, be A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. So, A Clockwork Orange. If you have not heard about it, I will tell you what it is about. It is about this boy, this 15-year-old boy. He's a gang leader, and he is obsessed with violence. He loves doing violent things. He loves doing crimes. One day he does a crime that is a bit too much and he ends up in jail, sentenced and imprisoned. In this prison, he volunteers to go onto this new experimental government rehabilitation program that basically means that they will inflict a lot of pain onto him to make him good, to make him better, because he's evil currently, right? And through this process he's losing everything that he's enjoyed, evil and the good parts and everything. And it's a book that talks a lot about government control, about morality, definitely a lot about morality. And when I was second grade of high school, this was the most thought-provoking book I've read by that point, definitely. I do think this book is very manageable to read, and it is a good start with classic literature, I feel like, especially if you like a bit of modern classics and if you like dystopian books. It is in the near future. I would say that if somebody sees you reading this book, they will probably think that you're intellectual, that you're an intellectual weirdo, I would say. Yeah, because I definitely got looks when I was reading it. On the way to my school in a tram, I definitely got some looks from people, but I didn't care. I really like this book, so I would recommend it. The next book that I have is a modern book. All of these are going to be now from 2000s to like last year probably. But this one was actually originally written in Norwegian, and then a few years back it was translated into English. And that is Paradise Rot by Jenny Hwal. I read this book last year, and I have to say, this is a very short book. Both Clockwork Orange and this one are very, very short book, under 200 pages. When I read this book, I was so weirded out. This book is definitely fit for bizarre books genre. It's a book full of decay, of grotesque things like bodily fluids. There are a lot of bodily fluids mentioned in this book, definitely more than I originally thought that they were going to be. I did read reviews of this book before I read this book. A lot of reviews just said that there was a lot of urine in this book, and I thought, okay, so it mentions urine a couple of times. No, it is urine-filled book, definitely a lot of urine. So if you don't like that, I don't know if you like this book, but it is a book that blends body with architecture. It kind of blurs the boundaries between those two. And it is another book about obsession. It's a book where we have our main character who goes to live in this weird apartment that has very thin walls. And it was before anybody lived in that apartment, it was actually part of factory that produced apple juice or something. So there are a lot of apples, a lot of apples, and it even has that kind of Eden, Garden of Eden feeling. This apartment kind of starts to looking like Garden of Eden feeling, and the body, as I said, with architecture, with this place is very connected as the architecture is decaying. So, some things are happening between these two, and like I said, it's very bizarre. I think that I will probably need to reread it to understand it a bit more, because upon a first read, I was just completely, I didn't know what was happening, but that's okay. You don't have to understand every single book and everything that the book tries to say. You can just enjoy the ride, and I did kind of enjoy the ride with this one. So this is definitely a book that if somebody sees you reading and they know what this book is about, they will think you're just not somebody they want to be around, especially when you're in bathroom. Now comes the only book on this list that I would say is not that grotesque, not horror book. This is quite cutesy book, cute child mind book, but it also is a sad book, and that is Miss I Sandwich by Mieko Kawakami. This is a literary fiction book. It's under 100 pages as I remember it. I read it a couple of years ago, and I just remember feeling happy when I finished it, although it's not particularly happy book, but it just made me feel this nostalgia and that childlike wonder that you have, because this book is narrated by a 10-year-old boy who is fascinated by this woman working in his local supermarket behind a sandwich counter. She's making sandwiches whole day, and you just are able to see this basic everyday thing that most people do, make sandwiches. You can see it from his point of view and how he looks at it with so much detail and clarity that you as adults don't really have, and he sees things in it that we adults cannot see. And it explores some other themes that are serious. This book just made me feel nostalgic. It is weird because of the way it was written. It felt very emotional for me while reading it. I felt very emotional on different levels, and I think it is a great book. If you're into Japanese literature, I think this is a great book to start with, or to continue with your journey in Japanese literature. I like Mieko Kawakami a lot. I read 3 books by her and I like all of them, but this one was my favorite, definitely. So that's why it's on this list. Now we can go back to bizarre, grotesque books, because we have a lot of books about obsession. Most of these books are about obsession, because obsessing about something is something that weird literary fiction books do. A lot of them are just based on some kind of obsession. And this one is about obsession with a fetish, with photographing. Our main character is a photographer, and she likes to take pictures, explicit pictures of average-looking men that she finds somewhere on the street, and that would be boy parts, by Eliza Clark, my favorite author. Our main character gets offered to do a show in this a bit prestigious gallery, and after she gets this offer, she kind of starts unraveling and spiraling and self-destructing very, very much. Read the trigger warnings for this book, and also this book took me to places I didn't think it would. I thought it would be only a literary fiction book, that then it has horror elements as well, which I really enjoyed very much. And also it does something that I love, and that is having a reliable narrator when you don't know is the things that the person you're seeing everything through seeing these things for real, or are they in their heads, or what is actually going on. I love it. This book is very provocative. It has very provocative themes that it's talking about. The main concept of this book is putting women in a place of power behind a camera so she can tell these men what to do, which is different from our traditional viewing of genders and of our traditional gaze where woman is and where man is. And I thought it was very interesting exploration. Eliza Clark in general writes so many different stories. Every single book that I read by her, you always kind of have that problem, I feel, when an author has a debut book that is amazing, but then the next book that they write kind of has the same feel, kind of has the same character. And I don't feel that way with Eliza Clark's writing at all. All the books that I read by her are something completely different. This year I went to a talk with Eliza Clark, so she was in Zagreb, and I went there and I heard her talking about all of her writing process and how she decided to write boy parts, and then afterwards how she decided to write penance, and she's always hungry. And I just loved it because you see that she really thinks about it. It's not just her point of view. She really knows how to build a character, and this character was so unlikable, insufferable at parts. A character that I wouldn't want to have in my real life, but also I loved her and I loved the things that she did and how she acted and the way everything was described in the book. I just really, really enjoyed this book. So, and it's definitely a weird book. If somebody sees you watching this book, they will think that you have some fetishes, maybe. It is a fetish-filled book. So now I have another woman-centric book, and that is Milk Fed by Melissa Broder. To be honest, I didn't really like this book. It wasn't for me. It just wasn't something I enjoyed that much. There's a lot of erotic fantasies in this book about literally being milk-fed. This grown woman has these erotic fantasies, and that is just not my cup of tea. So for that reason, I personally did not enjoy this book, but I see the appeal of the book. Our main character is a stand-up comedian in LA by night, and by day she works some corporate job. That doesn't really matter, because what really matters in her life is counting calories. Everything evolves around counting calories. Another book that I would say read a trigger warnings before going into this book, because it is a book centered around ED. But it also has some very important topics about self-image, about spirituality and religion and self-acceptance. It has so many different themes, some of which I enjoyed, some of which I didn't really. I mean, the cover of this book, if somebody sees you just based on the cover, they don't need to know what the book is really about. They will definitely be intrigued by what you're reading. I cannot believe I actually never did a recommendations video that I put this book in, and it is one of my favorite books of all time. So I don't really know how that happened, but I feel like when I put books in my favorites, I don't really want to talk too much about them because I don't want to overhype them and then somebody not enjoying them. So, but I just have to talk about it in this genre because this video wouldn't even exist without this book. This book made me realize what I love in books, and that is All's Well by Mona Awad. I know that a lot of people are talking about Mona Awad. Mona Awad is pretty popular author, definitely in this genre, but also I know that a lot of people mostly talk about Bunny, which is a fine book. I like that book, and I liked Rouge as well, but All's Well tops them without a doubt. It's just my favorite book by her. I think it's her best writing so far, and I don't know why people aren't talking about it that much, but I will. I have to talk about it now. What I like about this book the most is that everything that happens in this book is very theatrical and also very haunting. We have our main character, who is a former stage actress, and she's currently working as a professor in some kind of college. Doesn't really matter where. But the reason why she cannot act anymore is because her last stage performance she fell And since that happened, she's been dealing with chronic pain, which is very frustrating for her. Nobody really believes her. I mean, people believe her, but when you have chronic pain, when you have something that cannot be seen by naked eye, people tend to tell you, well, just try to ignore it, or maybe you just, maybe it doesn't, there's no reason for that hurt that you feel. There's no reason that you feel that pain, so maybe just stop feeling it. And that's what is told to our main character so much. She's working on this play with these students that are not very enthusiastic about her idea. She wants to do a play of Shakespeare's All's Well That Ends Well, and nobody really wants to do that because that's not very popular play by him. It's just, they would rather do Macbeth, and she doesn't want to do it. So chaos starts happening because every rehearsal is very chaotic when you have two different opinions not aligning at all. And in this chaos, some other things start to happen, some things that have magical undertones, and it starts to become very clear that our character is again not really reliable. I just love this book so much, the way it interwove the play with her life and the feel of this book, and also how it made chronic pain in the book without making it unimportant, but also made the book with these horror elements and made the book fun in a way to read. I just think that that's something that I didn't read in any other books, and it is still the best book that I read in that genre, definitely. It's still the best unreliable character that I ever read. And I just would encourage everybody who knows that they love it, who knows that they love these kind of books, to read All's Well, maybe even before Bunny or Rouge, because it has a bit of a different feeling, definitely. You can very clearly see Mona Watt's themes and writing style in all of the books. You can know that it's still Mona Watt, but it still feels a bit different. And I just love this book so much. I have a question for you. What would you do if you found a woman of your dreams, and the only downside of this woman is that she doesn't let you in on her past at all? You cannot know anything about her past. That is The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshni Chokshi. We have our main character. He is a husband to this woman, and he decided to marry her even though he cannot know anything about her past. But then he starts to realize that maybe he isn't really okay with that. Maybe he doesn't want to know a little bit, at least, about her past. So he starts to dig around a bit, diving into things that he shouldn't dive into. And you, as a reader, start to also become infatuated with her secrets and what actually happened. It's a very fairy tale-y book with magical elements, and it's one of the best fairy tale horror that I read, with gothic elements and also contemporary elements, and I just liked it so much. I didn't know where this book would go, but it went where it was the best that it can go, if that makes sense. I was really happy with the ending of this book. It didn't disappoint at all. And I also love the relationships in this book. It is very lyrical, it is very atmospheric, and also I would use the word elegant, because the character that we are mostly following is a very, very elegant lady. She's a very elegant lady that I feel like if I would meet her in real life, I would be infatuated with her as well, and I would just tell her okay with anything that she asks from me, as our main character, our main guy did, so I don't blame him. But if you like fantasy and if you like fairy tales, I think this is a great weird book for you. A few very horror heavy book. These are, these are probably the most horror books on this list, starting with Mother Thing by Ainsley Hogarth. This woman married a guy who turned out to be a mama's boy, and she was okay with that until the point where her mother-in-law unalived herself. And then her husband started to become very, very, very depressed and grief-stricken, and he just thinks that, well, it is just inevitable for him to do the same thing because he's a mama's boy. And our main character has to get him somehow out of this slump, out of this depression that he is feeling, and it's very tough because she is dealing with some things with herself. For example, that her mother-in-law hated her. She didn't like her at all at any point, and now she feels like her mother-in-law is kind of haunting her, and she's seeing apparitions of her. So she starts to breaking down. There's a big breakdown between both of them in their marriage with everything, and everywhere it's just everything is falling apart in their life. If you like reading about people that are just completely out of it for some time, I would say read Mother Thing. Like I said, it has horror elements. Our main character is not a very good person. Well, at least she becomes a very not good person, and she starts doing some very not good things and things that will help her husband somehow. It's very interesting. There's a lot of female rage involved in this book, which is a great thing. So yeah, now I have another book that I particularly didn't enjoy that much because some parts were just too much for me, but also I did kind of like it, and that is Mayfly by C.J. Leeds. I remember when this book came out, I saw a lot of people talking about it, and then I just never heard anybody mention it again, and I feel like it's a great book for these weird, bizarre books, people are recommending. In this book, we have a character that she is just completely unhinged. She's not normal, she's crazy, she's unhinged, she doesn't care for anything. It's a book with Disney princesses, serial killer tendencies, and weird Halloween decorations. I don't really want to say anything else about this book. If you like books about serial killers and with a bit of a romance plot, but not really, but a little bit of a romance plot, is a great book to read. And the last book that I have is another novella, and that is The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Khaw. I remember I firstly tried to read another book by this author, and I DNF'd it. So when I got this book, I was a bit hesitant to reading it. I didn't really know how I would feel, and it surprised me so much. It was such a good book. It's so short, and it packed a punch very well. It developed all the characters as much as it had to, and it had such an interesting plot. So we are following a siren and a plague doctor. I know, right? I mean, that already sounds amazing. They are escaping their kingdom because they did something. And on their escape, they stumble upon these weird little children that are hunting themselves and literally, stabbing themselves. So they follow them to their little village that is full of these kids, and it is governed by other plague doctors that are, stitching these kids up, and some weird things are happening. Again, another very emotional, very short book. I remember ending of this book. I just enjoyed it so much. I think it was one of the best endings that I read in horror books in general. I really enjoyed it. But also it has a very niche particular theme. So if the theme of following a plague doctor and a siren on their escape doesn't sound good to you, don't read this book. But if it does, as it does to me, then definitely read it, because it will probably surprise you. I think it is very good, and I don't hear people talking about it. But there you guys go. Those are my weird little bizarre book recommendations for you. As I said, I love this genre. There are probably going to be many more videos that I'll be doing on this topic in years coming because I read a lot of books, especially in the last few years, in the last like year and a half, I started reading so many books in this genre. And I think it's a great way to explore different genres, because all of these books are not the same genre. They all have something. They are all kind of, there's horror elements, there's literary fiction elements, there's fantasy elements, sci-fi elements, and I love that. I think that's amazing. And I think books in general shouldn't only be able to fit one genre. They should be able to fit different genres, so many other people can take them and find out something different about them and their reading taste, because these are the books that made me realize a lot of things about books and made me pick up another book from that genre or something like that. So definitely tell me if you have any recommendations in this genre. I would really want to explore it more. I know there's always room to grow, and I love getting recommendations. So if you have any recommendations in this genre, please let me know in the comments down below. And thank you for watching my video. I'll see you in my next one. Bye!